Hi, folks. Welcome to the iWrite Radio podcast for Monday. Welcome to Stuart Lockhead.
Hello there.
And Jimmy Hutton.
Afternoon, chaps.
And I'm Norrie Stewart. We will, as usual, start with Nicola Sturgeon's press conference. I think Alex Salmond will get a mention. Exams will get a mention. Wings has written 2 articles in the last couple of days that will get a mention. And of course, the latest to she, which will come out in the presser discussion, no doubt, care homes. Jimmy, what did you think of today's presser?
Interesting. There was a fair bit to get across, more detail, more stuff about schools. A couple of interesting facts I think that some people might have missed. It was interesting that she pointed out we're now up to a capacity for 40,000 tests a day in Scotland, and they're looking to up that to 65,000. Now, I know we're not doing anything like that at the moment, but it's handy to know that the capacity's there. I thought a lot of the hyenas would have gone on the Sunday Post story yesterday because the Twitterati, your Neil Findlays and all your wee gimpy people who get paid an awful lot of money to spend their Sunday footering about on Twitter, they went mad about this story yesterday. And I think Nicola kind of addressed it in the preamble, which I think may have spiked the guns of the media a wee bit, in saying that some of these 37 cases that it appears were transferred after a positive test. But as we said yesterday, if that was the case, they were going straight to isolation, or they were supposedly going straight to isolation. And you kind of have to take care homes at their word when they tell you that they can deal with isolating people who are positive. But I'm not so sure there were those cases. I think more is yet to come out on that. So all in all, I thought it was quite an interesting press conference. As I say, plenty of detail. And I think there was a wee bit of, certainly the First Minister and the Chief Medical Officer, there's a wee hint of fingers crossed that the schools going back fully this week works out well.
I don't think I can do much else. I mean, I will say on the care home things, I came away with the impression that 70% of the questions were around it. They were desperate to nail her on things that, I mean, again, you do the comparison with Bojo's press conferences, and the detail that they're looking for from her is incredible, and the willful ignorance. Oh, we'll just pretend you haven't explained this 100 times before about, people dying in hospital because it's the wrong environment. So we send them to care homes where they're supposed to be isolated and they die anyway. I think,
look, let's look at it from a slightly different angle. Yes, I think I agree with you, Norrie, that 70% of the questions were about care homes. I think they were desperate. I think they had nothing else to go on. They got a story that's a rehash of something that happened 4 months ago, written in the Sunday Post, which hates the Scottish government. And all they could come up with, I'm trying to look for anything else that they asked about that was in any way important.
Well, the Telegraph basically wanted Sturgeon to say that Williamson, as Education Secretary, should do what Scotland does so they could get a headline. It was all headline hunting as usual.
She's never going to fall for that.
No, it's kind of part of what I'm saying though, Stuart, that it's all headline hunting.
I think the sad, but I can't remember who it was for BBC, but I'd love to take him out the back green and slap him at the back of the head with a wet fish. I mean, the thing that he came out with was moving these people appropriate, or, and I'll put the wee fingers up there, was it appropriate in hindsight? What the hell does he mean, was it appropriate in hindsight? The decision wasn't taken in hindsight. The decision was taken in March when guidelines were very different. Testing was very different. It was bloody difficult for the Scottish Government to find appropriate testing that they could rely upon.
Yeah.
So what on earth does he mean by appropriate in hindsight? That is purely just an attempt to slap the First Minister and label her as having made an inappropriate decision.
Well, what she should have said to him was, will your headline include the word hindsight?
Mm-hmm.
I think it was good that she had her important sidekicks, both of them, with her. Jason Leach is always good. Jane Freeman's always good. And Jason Leach, one of the things he came out with we didn't know was apparently he claimed that Scotland had a good global reputation, I think, in public health safety.
Yeah, because the drop in infections in hospitals, the approach they took to that has been basically taken on board by lots of international health people.
And even Jane Freeman, we discovered again that the relevant date when the important guidance was issued was the 13th of March, which was 10 days before national lockdown, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm. And I remember at that point, Stuart, that Tories in Scotland were absolutely demanding that the Scottish government adopted UK policies on COVID-19 response.
Oh, absolutely.
And that's exactly what the Scottish government did.
And that the Scottish government, the Scottish virus rate was supposedly 2 weeks behind the English rate.
And they wanted bed blocking sorted out because we would need the facilities for the influx of COVID patients.
Aye, the entire Parliament was screaming for that at the time.
And Jane Freeman was there also to remind us that on the 19th of March, only 6 days after the guidance was issued, they dealt with any PPE issues that care homes had because the care homes didn't have enough.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's interesting how, particularly when you get trade unions appearing, they appear and disappear out of this story now and again, and we've not seen much for the bold Donald for Care Scotland for a while, but it's interesting how they always dredge up a shortage of PPE when what they mean is a shortage of PPE in private care homes, because publicly run care homes and hospitals had plenty of PPE, and the Scottish Government went out of their way to make sure that the private care homes also got PPE.
Yeah, they made the public supplies of PPE available.
I find it interesting, though, that she's built in an excuse in her answer today when she said private care homes, normal buying, the people they normally bought from, that wasn't open to them.
Yeah.
Because of the pandemic. So she's being ultra fair here. She's given the reasons that the care homes had a problem, almost protecting them. It'll be interesting when it comes out, and it will come out in the wash, because by that time they'll have been able to trace, hopefully, where the infections in care homes came from. And I'm not quite sure what the mainstream media are going to do if none of them or few of them came from hospitals.
Yeah, you're probably right, mate. And there's every likelihood that as many people were affected, if not more, by staff going into care homes.
Yeah. Now, we did discover one. It looked like a small item, but the Cooper Angus, a new cluster. It's new. It's in another food factory. Now, previous clusters that we've heard about have been in Wales, one in Anglesey, which is in Wales, but 2 of them in Wales. They were about a month ago. They were in food factories, places that make up sandwiches for the likes of Spencer. Now, it's interesting. I read an article last week where apparently the new cluster in New Zealand is in a frozen food logistics business warehouse, which also has a branch in Melbourne, and they're examining the link between the two. And there is a suggestion, the Chinese are claiming that frozen food logistics they seem to be saying that there is a possibility that the virus survives.
Yeah, that would be
food warehouses.
That would be a seriously worrying situation, because I think everybody within the food distribution networks has
Sorry,
been working
guys.
under the assumption that the frozen food, the act of freezing would actually create or would kill the virus, and it begins to look very much like it's not.
Well,
and you're right, Stuart. We've seen worldwide. We've seen in Argentina, Brazil, America. There seems to be something about food preparation and the slaughterhouses and what have you, where this virus spreads very, very rapidly, and it's a major worry.
Well, I say the evidence is tenuous, but New Zealand, the new cluster was based around this AmeriCool, they're called, the company, which is a frozen food warehouse. They've got them all over the world. They've also got one in Melbourne.
Yeah, where there's been a massive outbreak.
There's been a cluster there. So, and the Chinese are saying that there's a possibility it's on the wrappers, not just on the food inside, but the wrappers.
Well, the good thing about particularly the New Zealand one is that it's such a small cluster in such a very clean country that they will be able to drill right down and find out exactly where that's come from. Because if that is the case, sure, that's going to be vital information that needs to be disseminated worldwide so that we can start cleaning up our food prep and our food exporting businesses worldwide.
Well, I'm not buying a Marks and Spencer sandwich this week, that's for sure.
No.
Well,
I've got to be honest, mate. I'm a bit of a schemy. A Marks and Spencer sandwich is probably my price.
No, that used to treat. That was a treat for me when I worked up the town. When I lived, worked in.
All right for you. All right for you. The treat for me was my mother to see these big lips. She just wet them and then stuck me to the window of Marks and Spencer's while she went inside, mate.
Oh well.
Has anybody mentioned? Sorry about that, guys. That was my
No,
occupational therapist telling me I'm getting a wheelchair delivered tomorrow.
Very nice.
Very good.
Did either of you notice the Chinese have discovered COVID on imported frozen chicken?
That's what we've been talking about.
Right.
Okay. And there's a possible link between the New Zealand cluster and the Melbourne frozen foods warehouse. Same company.
We need New Zealand and Australia to be, particularly New Zealand though, because they've got so few cases. We need them to drill right down, because if there is a link, people need to know about that so that they can find ways to keep that out of the food distribution network. I
foresee a headline: Europe infected UK with frozen food imports. Oh, sorry.
Well, here, that's another thing we're not going to cover today, but did you see that NFU, the National Farmers Union, have announced that there's going to be a terrible harvest in England because of the weather this year, and we're going to be short of food. And of course, most of our food comes from Europe.
Oh, that's a bit disastrous.
They're particularly talking about bread, aren't they? It's the wheat harvest.
Wheat harvest at the moment.
Yeah, that could be good fun. I did notice one thing. I really like it when I learn something from these pressers, when it's not just the jackals looking for bones to tear out apart. Jason Leach explaining that track and trace prioritized going forward to break the chain of infection, not backwards to find out where it came from, which I thought was, there was another thing and I've already forgotten it.
There was the capacity, of course.
Jimmy mentioned
Jimmy
that.
was right about that. At the moment, as far as I know, they're typically doing 4,000 to 5,000 a day at the moment.
I think there was an interesting bit as well where I think they've maybe mentioned it today in the hope that the press may actually report this. I think there may be the upper gum tree given how bad our press are, but there have been instances already of children attending school when they shouldn't be there. They should be isolating because they've just come back from countries that are on the quarantine list. And I would hope that one of our esteemed either Reporting Scotland or STV News at 6 would have an item on this, because this is vital. If kids pass it on to each other, they're very unlikely to get particularly ill from it. The problem is when they go home and pass it on to their parents or their grandparents. So if anybody should be self-isolating and isn't, we need that stamped upon sharpish.
And that was interesting as well, because he the methodology of him making that announcement. No proof of it. It's just rumors kind of thing, but it got told to us at one of our meetings with people from lower down the chain, nearer the schools. Therefore, I am doing it now at the podium to all of Scotland.
Yeah, and also you mentioned that doesn't like the gatherings of parents at the school gates.
Quite right,
yeah,
too.
that's something that I've spoke to people about, and they've been horrified at that. You know, folk that have taken their kids up to the primary school and been absolutely gobsmacked at groups of 40 or 50, 60 parents standing around the primary school waving at their wane. Absolutely crazy.
And of course, they're not just standing there waving at their wane, they're getting all the gossip.
Aye.
I mean, they're getting all close together, blather, blather, blather.
Yeah, schoolgate gossips. Surely I should be allowed to drive my taxi into groups of schoolgate gossips.
No, you shouldn't. No, you shouldn't. This is about community bonding, lads.
I don't know what bond with the community.
Well, as I say, the thing was, I think I mentioned it yesterday, my sister who had a fainting, she fainted and banged her head last week, and she was gossiping with her neighbours, but they were standing so far apart, social distancing, they were all old, that when she started to fall, there was nobody close enough to catch her.
Ouch.
Well, she shouldn't have been talking to them in the first place.
She was naughty. Did he go there? She was encouraging them to watch her.
She'll be watching this, so
okay.
On your own neck, be this.
Let's move on.
Right.
Let's have a wee chat about what we all expect to be an assassination of Alex Salmond on the BBC at 9 o'clock tonight, Kirsty Wark's programme, where she has been lucky enough to stumble across the Jigsaw Women and has managed to get a couple of interviews with them. Unfortunately, Alex Salmond refused to be involved in it, I understand.
Aye, quite right.
So is there anybody amongst us who thinks this isn't going to be a hit job?
No, that's obvious it's going to be a hit job. But my first big question is, sure, if it was anybody else, the law would be involved in stopping this.
Well, given that Leslie Evans is due in Parliament tomorrow, and Leslie Evans is vital to everything that went on.
Is she not in front of the committee today?
I believe it's tomorrow that she's
the committee.
The timing stinks. The fact that 3 of the accusers have been involved in the making of this programme stinks. I don't know, I've seen a few quotes for Craig Murray in particular is incandescent about this thing. Remember, Craig Murray at the moment is facing proceedings for contempt of court. But
as
some
is
of the stuff
Michael Hirst.
Mark
some of the stuff that he's said is just astonishing, you know. Given a platform to anonymous accusers rejected by a jury after independent third-party eyewitnesses repudiated their claims. And they're going to rehash all of these things, all of these allegations that they've made before, that they've had in court, and the court has found that the accusations couldn't be proven. So why on earth does BBC Scotland find it appropriate to go again, to treble down? They're not doubling down, they're trebling down on this thing. And it's a nonsense to me. And frankly,
I wonder if Kirsty Wark realises her neck's on the line with this.
Oh, come on.
So they are.
Look, the BBC is the state broadcaster, and it's in their charter. They've got to defend the union.
Stuart, this is not to do with the union. This is to do with the reputation of an individual who's been found not guilty in court, and they are still choosing to try and blacken that man's name.
And how are they getting away with it?
I'm trying to remember an instance where anybody who has been found not guilty then had to go through basically trial by media for months afterwards.
I can't
think of. I mean, I can think of it from the point of view that they didn't go to court when they should have, and all that kind of, but nobody that's actually been through the process has
think the
gone
only-
through what Alex Salmond's had to go through.
No, the only one that I can think of, and frankly, there were very good reasons for that, were those that were accused of murdering Stephen Lawrence. Because people never ever accepted the result of that first trial where these guys got off. There was bags of evidence that they'd done it and they got off on technicalities. But other than that, I can't think of any innocent person that's been hounded by the press in this manner. As for the anonymity, I'd question, like, apparently there's 3 of these women tonight who are part of the programme. Their anonymity should be gone as far as I'm concerned, because they've made these allegations and they're remaking these allegations under a cloak of anonymity that, frankly, they should no longer have that legal protection as far as I'm concerned. If they choose to, and they are choosing by making the programme, if they choose to ignore the court decision, then the anonymity given to them by the court should also be ignored as far as I'm concerned.
Well, I'm also concerned about the fact that it's Kirsty Wark, who's extremely high profile, not just in Scotland, but she does been doing Newsnight for about 20 years. She's extremely high profile UK-wide. We all know what her face looked like when the SNP first won the Holyrood election in 2007. We also know that she is not an unbiased reporter. Her best friend is she goes on holiday with Jack McConnell and family, and Jack McConnell was the previous Labour First Minister. I mean, it's scandalous. It shows up Scotland as I mean, it's not good for Scotland.
No, it makes us look a bit backward, mate. It makes us look like,
well, it makes it look like Belarus.
Yeah, our legal system, our justice system is,
well, it can be manipulated, obviously.
Open to question. Yeah, you've got some senior people within the BBC that have made this decision. You've got some senior people within the Crown Office and Police Scotland that have taken some pretty dubious decisions, and none of those decisions are questioned. The only thing that's been questioned is Alex Salmond's innocence. And
the next 2, and the other, Craig Murray and Mark Hirst, who are up on contempt of court charges. I'm not going to go into the detail of what Dani Garavelli has exposed already. Apparently, all they've done is quote what she's done, she's from her article. But they're being charged in a way, they're not going to get a fair court hearing. They just go in front of a judge. There's no jury.
Yeah.
Okay, I try in cases like this. I mean, I'm an admirer of Alex Salmond, and I try to put somebody else in his shoes. What would my reaction be if it was Boris Johnson and these anonymous women were doing the same thing? And I have to admit that under those circumstances, I think my stance on this would be different. So from a legal point of view of the anonymity of these women, I think something has to be put in place that says you forfeit that. If you're not prepared to accept the court's decision, you must be prepared to forfeit your anonymity if you're going to go on a TV show or radio show or write articles or give quotes to the press. And that's the cost. If you want to continue this, that's the cost.
Aye, that's happened in certain cases. That's happened where alleged victims
have given up.
Have waived the right of anonymity because they wanted to make specific and clear allegations. These women haven't. They're hiding behind this anonymity. And I believe one of the famous quotes, and it was in the Garavelli article after the trial as well, one of the women taking part is the one who said she was standing in her kitchen and it felt like a punch in the stomach when she heard the not guilty verdicts. And I can't remember who wrote this weekend, but because I've read a few things on this, obviously. So I'd like to credit the person, but I can't remember who done it. But it was beautifully done. It felt like a punch in the stomach. Aye, hen. That was the guilt That was your guilt that punched you in the stomach, not the verdict.
It's difficult because you don't know who the women are. Therefore, you can't make a judgment on their character based on what you know of them. And to not willingly give up their anonymity and to continue in this vein shows a serious lack of honor.
Well, look, it's worse than that. What you haven't mentioned yet is the role of Leslie Emmons and her senior civil servants withholding the evidence that the inquiry, the Holyrood inquiry, demand.
Yeah.
Sorry?
Well, the Holyrood
inquiry... How can she withhold evidence?
Well, there you go.
Because she hasn't furnished them with the evidence that the inquiry is demanded. She didn't do it in the time frame, and she said that, for example, legal advice, no, you're just not getting that. The legal advice that they got on the civil case that Salmond won, the legal advice they got upon their new disciplinary proceedings, that is not going to be provided to the Scottish Parliamentary Inquiry, which is ridiculous in my opinion. The Parliamentary Inquiry isn't going to be a parliamentary inquiry if it can't see all the evidence.
And if they set up a process to examine sexual conduct amongst the staff, and that includes, let's say, the First Minister working in the Scottish Government, and then they decide at the last minute to change it so it can go backwards to for previous matters, and the only one person they catch that they prosecute is Alex Salmond. The whole thing stinks like a dung heap.
Yep, particularly given the fact that the only person they actually went after was Alex Salmond. But we can't prove that because they ain't going to show us all the bloody paperwork that we need to see. So, this programme tonight is going to be a disaster, mate. And Wings is quite right, as is Craig Murray. If you believe in Scottish justice, then this programme's not going to help it in any form, because right now it looks suspiciously to me like this programme tonight is specifically put out there to muddy the waters and to make it more difficult for the parliamentary inquiry to get down to the nitty-gritty and the bottom of any of this.
Well, I think the unseen backlash of this will be against the women. If one of them had chosen to give up the cloak of anonymity, I would have respected what they've got to say. If you've got to hide behind anonymity, why should I trust what you say? The court case, you got your day in court, you lost. If you still think you've got an argument to make, I'm sorry. If you don't have the decency to face up to it, I'm not sure I should be listening to you.
I also worry, Norrie, that some of these women were seeking to be candidates for the SNP prior to all this happening. Are some of them still seeking to be candidates? Have some of them been selected as candidates for next year's election? We can't know because they're anonymous.
My argument, I mean, as the accusers in a court case, the anonymity can stick as far as I'm concerned. That's fair enough. It's a difficult subject, and if it encourages women to come forward because they've been abused in any way, fine. But if you're going to go on television, if you're going to give quotes to journalists, etc., I'm sorry, that I'm very wary of what they say from now on.
Another question is Dani Garavelli, who's the key journalist and been involved in this so far, who should, we believe, at least being questioned by police on possible contempt of court for the article that she produced. But of course she wasn't, because of her husband's got something to do with the Crown Office.
Aye, he works in there. Aye, there's quite a lot that smells about this fight.
The reason, I mean, Wings has been chasing this as well. He's been writing to everybody, and nobody will take responsibility for these decisions. But one of the stipulations, this is not a police matter. Contempt of court is the court.
Well, why did they send a van full of police to sit outside Craig Murray's flat?
That's a good question, but this is not a police criminal offence. By all accounts, this is up to the courts. The police should have no involvement. But as you say, why did they go round to Craig Murray's?
Well, it would appear that the only
but the point I'm trying to get to is that because of that, Craig Murray's not going to have a jury.
That's what
This is going to be tried by judges.
It's not just one judge, not judges.
Not jurors.
And don't forget, right, the Lord Advocate has said he recused himself over this matter. It should have been his responsibility. The political head, Hamza Yusuf, recused himself because he said, I've got to stay out of this. So the person that made the decision to prosecute apparently is the Solicitor General, who I'm not going to name, but apparently she's next in line to the Lord Advocate. She's the deputy. So unless they come out and say that she recused herself, she made the decision to do so. Will she be questioned? Will her judgment be mentioned in tonight's show?
Very unlikely that.
Can you imagine that happening in America? Everything would be out. When it comes to the court system in America, everything's out in the open. We'd really have a big cloud of cloak over ours.
Except you can buy judges.
There'd be congressional hearings about everything. Presumably that's what we were hoping the parliamentary inquiry would be. However, I think it's pretty difficult to withhold information from a congressional hearing.
Well, there's another thing. What shall we say? The witnesses for the defense are having to appear as individuals. The women have agreed to appear, but only if they're in a group.
Aye. I have no idea what that's about whatsoever.
Why the difference? Why is there one rule for the accusers and another for the defense, if you like? Because this feels like another court case.
It feels like a kangaroo court, aye. It feels like...
What, the inquiry?
Yes.
Yeah, the inquiry, it feels like it's being manipulated by the opposition to turn it into a kangaroo court. And frankly, like the one that Norrie just mentioned there, if they're bending over backwards to suit the accusers, do we think there's any chance that this inquiry is going to come up with a clean verdict, so to speak?
Well, if they want to pressure the witnesses, for want of a better expression, for the defense, by insisting they appear individually, why don't they want to pressure the accusers by forcing them to appear individually?
I can see why they're doing it. They'll tell you that they want to get these women into the parliament unnoticed, all at the same time, and keep the cameras well away from them to protect their anonymity. That'll be their excuse.
Well,
but the reality of that's a very different thing.
I'm sorry, ask Craig Murray what happens when you quote somebody else's article. You end up on contempt of court. So anybody that didn't protect their anonymity should end up in court. So they don't have to do that. That is not an excuse.
No.
The whole thing is beginning to stink. A bit like the debacle with the NEC now, which was the other article from Wings, where Wings has apparently got an inside person on the NEC who tells us Joanna Cherry had been rejected as a candidate while a sitting MP by the NEC.
The NEC, they tried to block her candidacy in last December's general election, and they thought they'd actually won it because they won the vote of people who were there.
At the meeting?
Yes, but unfortunately for them, to remove a sitting MP requires a supermajority of 2/3, and they never got that.
And everybody on the NEC, whether at the meeting or not, gets a vote. Apparently, Joanna Cherry had been told she couldn't join the meeting by phone.
Which is ridiculous in this day and age. Of course, you should have been able to join in a meeting like that. But again, that smacks of the NEC being absolutely infiltrated. If they're trying to remove one of the most high-profile, successful, because remember, she hadn't long she hadn't long won her court case in the Supreme Court against the UK government. So they're trying to remove that person. why are they trying to remove a person like that? Why are they trying to remove somebody quite so popular within the SNP and, frankly, within the country?
She's not woke enough.
Mm.
I mean, all she is a gay woman, for God's sake, as if she
Aye.
could
Not enough.
understand.
No, it's not enough these days. Got to be young.
Oh, I don't know. Very strange.
Yeah, I think the NEC, I was already of the opinion that the NEC is unfit for purpose and there needs to be a major purge in there and remove a lot of people. Frankly, I would suspend the entire NEC right now, even if it means taking 6 MPs and 6 MSPs and have them run the party and do everything that the NEC would do for the next 6 months or whatever. Just suspend the NEC altogether. Let these dozen people run the party and have a full investigation into why the NEC comes up with decisions like that, because of that one. That one is scandalous. And frankly, if I was Joe Cherry, I would be bouncing. I would never be off the phone right now to Nicola Sturgeon and Peter Murrell saying, what the is going on?
I think she knows what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
To be honest, she probably does know what's going on.
Oh, I'm pretty sure she does, Stuart, but if I'd be on that phone, and if they didn't give satisfaction, I'd be giving an interview to Channel 4 News tonight saying, by the way, I'm getting pumped.
I'm worried about motives. I mean, they're taking risks by behaving they are on the NEC. They're taking risks by behaving they are, or whoever it is taking the risks by this strange program tonight, the Salmond prosecution. There are people in positions of power in this country taking great risks about reputations. Not just
desperate.
Not the people in the frame at the moment, but their own reputations. People from abroad might start investigating and then it'll all come out.
They're desperate, Stuart. The numbers have been going in only one direction for years. Since 2014, the numbers have only been heading one way. And out with the United Kingdom, you'll find very, very few political analysts that don't expect Scotland to be an independent country in the next few years. They are desperately trying to stop that because, frankly, England becomes a basket case after 2 or 3 years of Scottish independence.
It is. It's noticeable. It's noticeable in the press from abroad, Australia, New Zealand, Ireland, America. I read quite a lot of it. And when it's a story from Scotland, they just say Scotland, Edinburgh, Scotland. They don't say United Kingdom. Whereas almost any other state or region in the world, they tell you what country it was in.
But my good man, we unionists have a cure for that. We're going to introduce Union Jack tarmac to Scotland, so just in case you don't know who's in charge of you.
It's okay. So anyway, there's a 7-story building. Have they actually cut the ribbon yet for the new building on New Street with 7 stories and room for 3,000 or 4,000 civil servants? 3,000
civil servants, yeah.
Mm-hmm. It's full. It's been it's been in operation for months.
Is that not why the 2 English guys and Union Jack was up here, standing with their legs splayed outside the front door?
Aye, they came up to do an official opening, but it's been up and running for months, mate. I didn't care. I think I think it's a Barry target. Anytime I'm up the tune now, half a dozen eggs, splatter the windies. I have no problem with that. Run up the Jacob's ladder and stand in there ready to fight anybody that chases me.
Yeah, and I think we should actually make sure that any future marches, end up there. I know it's a narrow street, but that's a good target.
Market Street's quite wide.
Down at the Carlton Road's a bit not that wide.
No, but Market Street
under the railway.
Market Street looks right onto the front door, does it not?
Mm-hmm.
Aye, it does.
Aye. Market Street's fine. We can all stand on the bridges and fire catapults at them.
I've not a decent gutty for ages, mate.
I shouldn't have said that. Somebody will be up on the bridges firing catapults at them, surely.
It's interesting that there's a photograph around of the windows, of course. They're all painted up with Union Jacks, so that if you go past in a train going to London, all you can see is this enormous Union Jack. But the building itself is right down below the Scottish Government HQ. I'm just wondering if they've got secret spy things there aimed at the
Oh, right. You're talking about on Carlton Hill, the old
Tandos
jail.
House, the main executive
Yeah.
office,
Yeah,
not the one in Leith, which is
the
obvious
old Carlton jail.
Aye.
up there, where the First Minister has her office and where we
Yeah,
get
yeah.
press things from. And we've been in there, Norrie, haven't we?
Yeah, we did. We had a meeting with the Scottish Government in there, Stuart.
Yeah, we nearly got
Surprised you never got dubbed up. How did you get out?
I think I had a collar and tie on, mate. I think that's what got me out of it.
We thought we were going to get money out of them for advertising for the radio station.
Yeah. Anything else caught your eye, boys?
Well, there's one little thing I've been saving. Stuart Cosgrove, who a lot of football fans will know about, but also other people, he has brought up a fact that there is a favourite Scottish word, which is fairly rude, but which is used plenty, and doesn't seems to be all right on television, things like Still Game, and it's FUD. I'm not going to say what it means, but I know that our friend here, Jimmy, quite often uses the term fuddery.
Aye. And he's been misappropriating my language. I used to frequently speak about the BBF, Bampottery, Bobaggery, and Fuckwittery. But fuddery fits right in amongst that. I think that Mr. Cosgrove's quite an entertaining chap, and the football programme in particular is outstanding off the ball. But, he's well worth a look, some of his writing. He's a clever guy. He's actually got a book out, I believe it was launched this weekend, called Cassius X, about how Cassius Clay became Muhammad Ali and the political and religious background to that story. And I'm told it is absolutely outstanding. I've only read a preview so far, but definitely worth a butcher's hook if anybody's interested in their boxing.
Well, let's be honest, there is an alternative explanation for FUD: fear, uncertainty, and doubt, which sums up the Better Together people at the last referendum.
Exactly. That's all they tried to spread, Stuart, was fear, uncertainty, and doubt. I noticed over the weekend, I know we're getting to the end of things, Norrie, but I noticed that the Alliance for Unity, George Galloway and his happy clappy bunch of absolute Fruit Loops are out there disseminating the false information that independent Scotland pensioners wouldn't get any money from London. So they've been out putting that one out there again.
Because London would give up its seat on the UN Council, of course, yes.
Yes, indeed.
Aye. Well, I think we'll call it a day of that, lads. We didn't hit everything, but we certainly covered. And I do like the FUD spreading analogy.
Excuse me, there's definitely no FUD spreading going on in this here programme.
I'm glad you got that one, Jimmy.
Yes.
There's been lots of fuddery.
Lots of fuddery. Okay, thanks, Stuart Lockhead. Thanks, Jimmy Hunton.
Cheerio.
I'm Norrie Stewart, and thanks for listening, folks. We'll be back tomorrow with more. Okay, think of another word. I can't get FUD out my head.
Bampottery.
Bampottery tomorrow.
Oh, that's a good one.
Cheers.